Welcome, happy Friday. It is good to be at the end of another week in the spring semester, unless of course you're on duty like myself, in which case it's maybe less exciting, but it is still the Friday of another week during the semester. So glad to be with you today and talking about all things small schools and universities. I see several of you have posted things in the registration that you want to talk about, and we are happy to get to those. First, I wanted to take just a moment and do a couple of introductions. Folks who are on our Small Colleges and Universities Experts in Residence group. So I'll get you started. My name is Drew Peterson. I'm the Small Colleges and Universities Director on the ACUHO-I Executive Board. I am also the Associate Dean of Students and Director of Residence Life at Presbyterian College here in Clinton, South Carolina. Beth, you want to go next?
Hi, everybody. I'm Beth Ackman. I'm the Director of Housing and Residence Life at SUNY Morrisville, which is located in Central New York.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Robin Gagno. I serve as a Residence Life and Academic Operations Manager at Baldwin Wallace University in Ohio, just outside of Cleveland.
And so really the thought for today was, if any of you were able to attend our symposium on Wednesday, we had some really great sessions. We got to hear from Dr. John Comerford, who's the president at Otterbein. We got to hear about his affinity for the Green Bay Packers, but also just about how maybe we on our campuses should work more like the Green Bay Packers in that they are, owned by the fans and not by an owner as all of the other NFL teams are. And just how do we think more broadly about our work and not just about residence life, but more broadly about how we work on a college campus. And it was great to hear from him. We also had 4 incredible sessions from some really talented folks all across the country and different associations bringing their expertise to us, talking about achieving crisis resilience, both with students and with our staffs. Healing campus racism and injustice, which we all know is work that is going to need to continue on and we need to continue to do a better job of. The mental health of campus housing and residence life staff, certainly COVID has brought that to the forefront and is something we need to continue to discuss and work on. And then also talking about reimagining our work. And many of you have seen the article about George Washington University and how they may be moving away from resident assistants and hiring more professional staff and what that might look like. And we know that, again, with COVID and budgets, people are going to continue to creatively look for new ways to deliver all of the things that we need to deliver to our students and residents. And so if there is anything from any of those topics that we want to talk about, we can jump into those topics. The other things I noticed some of you had put into the registrations were related to RA hiring and what does that look like, some of our training for RAs and also for professional staff, and more broadly, just what is fall opening going to look like, which I wish I had a crystal ball and could give you the easy answer to that. Some talk about maybe navigating different roles that we have right now, as well as on-call schedules. So if there is anything else, you can also put it in the chat, but this is really an open conversation amongst all of us. I am happy to moderate and keep an eye on the time, but wherever we would like to begin, I'm open to hearing from all of you. Where would you like to start talking?
Someone's got to have something they want to talk about.
Dan, I think you beat me at trivia the other night, so I think that means you're in more of a leadership role than I am. Mr. Waxman, do you have anything in particular on your mind?
I'm brand new to ACUHO-I, so everything's on my mind. So I just joined. I'm just starting a new position at Truman State University. So everything's going to be on my mind, and I'm brand new to a lot of the stuff. So I'm just learning whatever I can at this moment.
Well, we are glad to have you here. And that's part of why we are going to start continuing these types of conversations monthly, so you can get to meet and network with more people and also just work through and maybe get some ideas. So maybe the place to start is with fall opening. I know there's still a lot of things to work through, but just kind of from a preliminary standpoint, where is your campus at in terms of plans for the fall? I know here at Presbyterian College, we have been in person this semester. And so we are planning on being back to it next semester. I think the question right now might be around, are we going to require vaccinations? Has anybody's leadership team taken a stance on that yet? We have not.
So for Truman, we haven't made that decision yet, but we will, as far as I know, we're planning on being 100% in person. So I haven't heard anything otherwise yet.
I can say life in the South in Arkansas, we will not be requiring vaccinations, and we will, we are definitely back in person, and there's been press announcements about to that effect. And that's where, I'm not saying I agree or disagree, I'm just saying it's a fact of our region where we're going to be open this fall, and that's just the way it's going to be. So we recently had a student vaccination clinic on campus, and to around 15 to 20% of our residents participated in that. And you may say, oh, that's really low. You're right. But they may be receiving their vaccinations in other formats, but it's not something that's going to be checked. So there that is.
I think a lot of our students are also kind of hanging out and waiting to see what comes with Johnson & Johnson, because I heard from a lot of our students that they were excited of the idea of only one shot, not two. And so I think there's just a lot of unknowns out there between everything, questions about that shot, and then also when and where could they get it if it were available.
We had both. We're a Madison County vaccination location, our college. We had both. We're having an issue with, well, not issue, but a concern that students don't want the vaccination. They want to know how people responded. And honestly, a lot of them didn't want the Johnson & Johnson one. We got a lot of our community to do it, but our students wanted the Moderna or the Pfizer because they've seen people respond to that one already. We all wear buttons now at testing that say, I've been vaccinated. They ask me 100 questions. I think that's their favorite thing to do. Like, how can I trick Beth up at 9 o'clock in the morning? So they are definitely interested in it, but they want to know, like, what happened to me. And I'm like, honestly, I wish they would put the second shot in pill form because I slept like a rock. Like, it was the best sleep I'd had in years. And they're like, seriously? I'm like, yeah, just plan the next day to sleep. Like, you'll be fine. Just plan the next day to sleep. But my mom was splitting wood the second day, like out splitting wood, like totally fine. And I'm like, you are 60, 70 years old and you're splitting wood. She's like, it need to be done. I didn't feel any pain. I went split wood. Your father slept all day, but I split wood. And I'm like, okay, woman. So everybody was different. So that's what we've kind of been telling our students. And when they hear these, like, I guess, positive responses, they're not questioning it as much going to get tested. We have not made a stance at all if we're going to. We just highly recommend students to get vaccinated, but we can't tell them you have to get vaccinated. I don't know what SUNY's going to decide. I'm part of the SUNY system. I have to follow whatever they tell me to do. So right now, for fall opening, we're planning to pre-test and test as they show up because I'd rather be prepared than unprepared.
In Ohio, as of right now, none of the schools have made a decision to require vaccinations. We're going back from our single rooms back to our double rooms. So I think we're gonna not be at full capacity as we were in the past due to the fact that, again, a lot of students chose to try to get out of their contract because they wanted to live at home and not deal with our community type bathrooms, those types of things. But which is sad, but statistics always prove that living on campus is better for students. But again, when you live 15 miles from home, sometimes it's better just to commute.
I think the other question that's going to come up related to that is maybe we might not require it for students, but what if it is required for employees? And then how far into employment does that extend? Does that count student employees? And so is this a conversation we might have to have with our RAs who might not be interested in it? I don't know. But certainly employment law is different from what you require for students. And so there's lots of lawyers who I'm sure are going to be looking at these things for the next couple of months and trying to figure all of these things out for each and every one of us. I actually, to both Beth's points, being in South Carolina, there is some hesitancy amongst a number of our students as well. But in conversation with them, what I'm actually hearing is there's a lot of students who their parents are very hesitant about getting in, but they have interest in it. And so we're also dealing with that very typical dynamic of, I'm not sure that I think the same as my parents, but I don't know what to do about it. And so there's also just some conversations and development that we're working through with students on that too. Not urging or not urging them to get the vaccine, but just helping them feel that struggle and what they do with it. Which it's nice to be able to do the work that we usually do and the work that we're used to doing, but certainly never thought we'd be talking about vaccinations as part of that conversation.
Yeah, hi all, my name is Griffin and I serve as the Director of Residence Life at Iowa Western Community College here in Council Bluffs, which is right across the border from Omaha. Here we are encouraging but not requiring vaccinations. We are hoping to do some more vaccination clinics on campus. We did a couple with the J&J before everything got shut down, to some really mixed reviews. Our students, there were a few diehards that were like, yes, give me the vaccine. And then a lot of our students, including our international students, were not interested in taking up that opportunity. And we tried to push it to our RAs, who also were not very interested in taking the vaccine. So I think it'll be interesting. Right now, our institution and the state of Iowa have not said that a vaccine will be required. We are just highly encouraging folks to complete the vaccine. And if they do have their vaccine completed, we're going to ask that they indicate that to us. That way, should we need to quarantine or anything in the future, those folks who have completed vaccines may not be required to go through a quarantine period.
And I think that's maybe how a lot of us who don't require it will be, is there will be some advantages to not having it, not having to quarantine and those sorts of things. Welcome. It's glad to have you here. Hello to Lynn as well. Good to see you. We are open to conversation and what's on folks' minds. So this is an open session. If there are things you want to know about, like I said, one of the other things I saw a couple of different times from folks in the registration was just related to training. And again, that could be professional staff or RA staff and kind of what that looks like. So any one of you who are on the call, does anybody in particular have specific questions related to training that you want the group to talk about? Because I think we're all happy to dive into whatever direction you want to head.
I can ask a question. Hi, everyone. I'm Rachel. I work at Nazareth College in Rochester, New York. And so obviously the fall, a lot of things were remote for RA training. Are you doing fall of 21 training all online, some online, all in person? Has anyone got that far yet, maybe? What's everyone looking like there, I guess? We haven't fully decided ours, so.
We're doing combo. So we're going to have some stuff, and I'm just down the road. Well, just down 90 from you.
Yeah.
So we're doing a combo. We don't have a ton of RAs, again, small school like you guys. So our theater, we can space them out right now because we just had an in-service in person, which was so awesome to see all the RAs together at one time because we haven't been able to do that in a year and a half. So what we're going to do is our daytime training, like our normal 8 to 4, whatever our schedule is, that's going to be in the theater if possible, or outside in our like major area. So we can at least get them together. They are saying it's going to change to 3 feet, but who knows by fall. But we are going to at least bring them together because that's all they have put us on for review is we want to be together. Stop separating us. Stop making us be in staffs of 10, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, fine, we'll put you all together. You'll get to wear masks the whole day. It's fine. We are doing some online training ahead of time, like to kind of get their idea because we have some of those presentations ready to go. So over the summer, like near the end before they show up, there's going to be a couple things. And then at night, the stuff that's not like something we have to talk about or have to go into detailed training, we're going to do that as a presentation that they can watch and then do a survey. And then their RD will meet with them one-on-one if there's any concerns. So that's kind of what we're doing. I only have 10-month RDs, so we have to plan it out now. We don't get to plan in the summer. So that's
Oh.
the only reason why I know that this is our path, because we're almost done setting our training for the fall. And of course, I'm here for 12 months. So if I have to flip it, I can. But that's kind of our plan right now.
Great, thanks.
Yeah,
Okay. I was going to say, similar to Beth, we do some training prior to them arriving, just general information. We've been doing that for years. I think we've last year upgraded it. And so we'll probably have more things for them to review prior to them returning. And then we'll give them a day and a half while they're on campus to complete some of the things they didn't complete over the summer. And then we're going to be in person. But again, we'll probably have less nighttime training and have them do more remote. So a combination of both.
yeah, here at Iowa Western, our plan is to be fully in person. I just started in this position in January. Previously, I was at the University of Wyoming, and last year we did all of our stuff virtual, including like some of our desk trainings and things that it's really difficult to do virtual. The higher ups at this institution have said, nope, we are moving ahead with things being in person with safety precautions, but the expectation is to have everything in person. I also always worry about having future staff do work over the summer. So like trainings over the summer, I get nervous of you're not being paid for this work. What does that look like? We are lucky that we are going to have some summer staff with us that will be transitioning to the fall. So we might be able to do a little bit more development with those folks. But yeah, our plan is fully in person and hopefully a more real training with doing some of the fun activities, going out to the lake, all of those kind of fun things that we all love about RA training each year.
For this summer, just going off that because of what Griffin said, we're not making them do it in June and July. Their agreement is from August 1 until May 31st. So we're actually going to send it to them like the week before they come. So we're not, and that's under that August 1st time frame. And they're aware of that when they take the position. We don't ask them to do stuff in June and July. The only ones that we ask to do anything is their HRAs. We ask them to do their presentations. And if they don't get them done by the time they leave in May, then they're expected to do them over the summer and get them to me by August 1. But both of them are already done with their presentations. They sent them to me 2 nights ago. But we kind of do more of like a survey training for our returning students to make sure we don't like bombard them with training that's just not needed. Because that's the other complaint we've always got is, why am I going through this for the third year in a row? And you are making me learn the same thing I already know. So it's more of a assessment to see who needs to be at what training and also who can help us with a training. So we've been able to like, I don't know, ask some of our returning RAs like, hey, you did really well on this assessment. Would you mind presenting for us? And it's been a really positive thing because the RAs like hearing from their peers versus like, I only have a staff of 4, them talking at them all day. It's kind of nice to break it up. So that's what I meant by our summer stuff.
And I dropped a link in the chat. I would love to be fully back in person. And I think we'll probably get pretty close to there. But I also, last year doing everything virtually, some folks who run the numbers more closely than I do went, wow, it is really expensive to have all of your staff on campus for a long, long period of time. And so we found some real benefit from the RA 101 and RA 201 courses that ACUHO-I has, to be able to get them the basics online without having to grow everything ourselves, and then to be able to bring them back for a shorter length of time to really dive into the details of our campus. So, just another way to do it. I think it was like $18 a person or $20 a person. It was not expensive when you consider what 3 meals a day for a couple of days looks like. And so just another way to get into that hybrid without having to do it all yourself. And there was some benefit for us in terms of our professional staff. Again, just a couple less days of having to run around like crazy and make sure all of those things have been managed to get through the basics, so that once they were fully back, we could really dive into some deeper topics. How do we do things here? What is our actual protocol? How do I want you doing this specifically in this way? Those sorts of things. So just another option out there for you to think about.
One of the things that we're carrying over from last fall check-in is again, like most of us, we had to expand our check-in dates to, instead of having all the freshmen come in 2 days, they came in 5 days. We're going to continue with that. Again, it's a little more time consuming, but it seemed to go really well. When students checked in this last fall, they just got their keys and the RA wasn't on the floor, those types of things. And this year, the RAs are going to be more available to help them, not move their stuff, but help them adjust to living in the residence halls more this year than they did last year. So it's more customer service and more with a personal touch as well.
How did you schedule those, Robin? Do you have in-house software or did you use outside software? How'd you set those up?
We have in-house software that we utilize. And so students, like we had certain slots, like 10 people checking in a half hour or 5 people checking in a half hour for each building. And so that they could sign up, pick up their keys and go directly to their rooms. So we'll probably do the same thing, but probably maybe increase it from 5 to 10. Again, it also depends on social distancing and what other requirements that the CDC has on us in the state of Ohio. But it worked well.
We used Sign Up Genius, same idea though, to be able to limit the number of slots. We did I think it was like $10 a month package so that we could take the ads off of it and add our logo and stuff. But yeah, we in the past have not always scheduled our move-ins other than, first year students on this day, upperclassmen on this day. And we have seen the real advantages of doing that. So that's going to be one of the things we're going to continue on as well, even as we open up the number of people per time slot.
The big thing, it reduced the congestion on campus with parking, because for some reason, that first day of check-in, everyone wants to be there at 8 o'clock for some reason, because if they think they get there early, they're going to beat the rush. And really around 3 or 4 o'clock, everyone's already checked in. So it helped a lot that way.
We are keeping we're not extending it out as much, but I didn't have a software. It was called Excel file. But what I did is we wanted to also make our buildings not all get filled up at the same time. So I just took the move-in roster, sorted it by new students, returning students, and then I just put dates and I just copied and pasted all the way through. And that's how you got your assigned date and time. One parent said, well, that was kind of smart. I'm like, yeah, I had nothing else to do and I'm not going to call you all to find out when you want to come. And then what it said is, this is your assigned date and time. If this does not work for you, please let me know. Because we had to worry about like people coming from the city. So I also separated out by location of your home, because the students coming from the city normally don't get here until like 11 is the earliest. And then we always have our local kids sitting on our campus at like 4 a.m. And I'm like, who is going to help you right now? Late is 4 a.m. I don't even know why I'm here at 4 a.m. Like, what are you doing? So we are going to spread it out. We just used an Excel file. It didn't take much, and then we loaded it into our housing software so I could easily like send out emails and stuff. But we're keeping it spread out. Oh, and we designed these half sheets. Actually, my RD designed these half sheets. So we give them to each student as they check in, and it tells them everything they're missing or everything they have done before they can go into the hall. Oh, we have to do those again because everybody loved them. Financial aid, everybody. So some of the stuff I developed or had designed during this time that takes a lot of time to do, I guess, is stuff that people love. So we're just going to keep it moving, but it does make things much more organized. And I am a key on organization. I hate when things are like a little sporadic on move-in day because they're already going to be crazy. So if we can help organize it, we try.
I don't know exactly what our fall move-in is going to look like. I know it's going to be a little similar to the previous year, but we did time slots and we designated them. And we kind of used our software. We used THD, but we kind of looked at our floor plans and did by room. So maybe it was like every 4th room was getting someone moved in because we figured those students are already going to live together. So get them in and they're already going to fill the hallway with other stuff. So by the time their time slot's over, everything's actually contained in the room. And then hopefully their parents are gone at that time. So we kind of did every 4th room. And then when we had like a suite style, so it was 2 bedrooms, like 2 double rooms, 1 room within the suite would fully move in and then the other one would come in. And that was we had 4 time slots for our incoming students. So we kind of did, I guess, more of a floor plan strategy.
Yeah, that's why I used my roster to do the same idea, because we didn't want a ton of people in the hallway. The fun thing was my RAs had to be like our controllers of the door, and only 2 people were allowed in with them at a time. And like we had some split families, and they're like, both sets were there to help move in. I'm like, sorry, you can't go in. And then we had a mom that just wanted to decorate the room, and I'm like, okay, so let the guys move all the stuff in, and then you go in and decorate the room. So, you know, it was that kind of control we had to watch too that we didn't expect to watch, but it went smoothly. So I think we're going to implement some of the things that we did, just maybe not as many days for move-in as we had, hopefully.
Hi, folks. My name is Lynn Cashenbasso. I'm sorry, I had some major technical issues. We went into a lockdown this morning at 8 o'clock, so very unexpected. So I'm remote, but I'm from Mount St. Vincent University in Halifax, Nova Scotia, and I'm the Atlantic Canada representative for Housing and Residence Life in our Student Services Association. Most of our schools here, at least in the city, several of us have talked about doing some training collaboratively. So trying to do some online modules collaboratively across the board for some of the basics and the ones that we typically use the similar programming styles for. So sexual violence prevention, alcohol harm reduction, those types of things. The ones that we can do more broad-based that are not really campus specific. We'll be doing those online over the course of the summer for training. And then from that point on, we also do some module-based learning with our RAs over the course of the summer. We have it set up so that they can do it independent. They will do their own interactions with their groups based on their residences that they're in. But our RAs will be able to kind of pick and choose when they're able to do it. A lot of them are camp counselors and things like that. So oftentimes they don't get to fit a specific time mold. For September, our training, we will have a hybrid. So we'll have the online modules over the summer and we'll do in person. We did in person last year as well. We were one of the only groups on campus. We had all online classes for the whole year. We will have in-person classes. We're expecting to for September as well as online. So we'll do a blended model. Like a couple of you said, Drew, especially the cost saving measures that we have proven that can happen have now come back to bite me in the toe, I think, because quite frankly, now I've proven that we can do it cheaper, which is a little bit troublesome from a budget perspective. But at the same time, there's other areas where we've been able to increase some spending. So our move-in, we did similar to what Robin explained. A lot of us here in Atlantic Canada did move-in times and by appointment only. No schools up here had any support folks allowed in at all. So I'm sorry, I stand corrected. We have one support person could go in with the students. We did COVID screening. I was doing COVID screening with students and support people every day for 3 days, myself and my colleague, and they had 1 hour. So the support person was only allowed in for the hour to get the bulk of the items in, and then they had to leave the building. Based on our current climate with numbers right now, we were riding pretty smooth, and now we've had to say over the last couple of weeks with move out that there are no support people allowed to come in to help them move out. They can meet them at the door outside with a mask, but they're not allowed in the residence halls. We've had no visitation. None of our campuses pretty much in Atlantic Canada had visitation at all for their students that lived on campus. So that's my updates pretty much. But the collaborative aspect here for our universities and colleges has been really helpful for us. We have a bi-weekly meeting that we meet with all of our university residence folks. And we update and support each other with the COVID planning, with the quarantine plans. And now we're looking at the training collaborations for this summer.
I think that brings up another question that for those of you who have been in person this semester, what does visitation look like on your campus in terms of students going between buildings and visiting friends and or with outside guests? And then what are you anticipating that might look like for the fall too?
So, hi, I'm Jules Howard. I'm the resident director, one of the resident directors at the University of Arkansas, Fort Smith. This year, we allowed our students to have current students could come and visit or immediate family. But that's kind of where we drew the line. And I'm not exactly sure what we're going to do for the fall, if we're going to continue that or not, but the campus is going to, is pushing to go full in person again. So we'll see what happens with that.
Hi, my name's Brandy. I'm at Nebraska Wesleyan University, Assistant Dean for Residential Education. And this whole year, we basically had if you don't live in the building, you're not coming into the building. You could visit within the building, which caused a lot of room changes as we went on through the year because they wanted to be in the same building as their friends, which is understandable. We have townhomes and apartments in our housing mix, and they could designate one visitor because they have separate bedrooms and could kind of stay separate from
Did I freeze or did Brandy freeze?
I think Brady froze.
Okay, I just was wondering, so thank you.
While we're waiting for Brandy, we didn't allow outside guests after check-in. And we did allow students who lived in residence halls to visit, but not more than one person per room. If they were in a suite style, they could have up to two. But again, we were somewhat restrictive to keep students from interacting with one another, which is a contradiction to living in residence halls. But because of COVID, we had to be a lot stricter than we had liked to be.
Welcome back, Brandy. Sorry we lost you.
Yeah, I'm not sure what happened, but thank you.
And I'm seeing a couple folks dropping in the chat a few different things as well. Here at PC, Robin, we were pretty similar to you. Once we got through move-in, no outside guests in any of the residence halls. If mom or dad or boyfriend or whoever wanted to come visit, y'all can hang out outside, but don't go inside. But we did allow any of our other students, because so many of them we're a small school. They're all in class together, doing sports together, studying together. Anybody who was a PC student could go and be in any of the other residence halls as long as they were escorted in and out by their hosts. And we were much more open before that. Before that, students had access to any of their other residence halls during the day so that they could go visit their friends whenever. We do not have stationed front desks. So that was a big change for us. And I think that's one of those questions as we go back to normal, whatever normal may be. How do students feel about this? Did we actually like only having access to your own residence hall, or do you want to have access to the buildings again? Something we'll probably be working through with our Student Government Association. We're a fairly safe campus, but there were actually a couple of times where late at night, people worry about walking back. Maybe they don't utilize the Safe Walk program or whatever, that we have had a couple of students say, I really liked being able to just swipe into the other buildings just because I felt safer that I could get somewhere if I needed to as I was walking back across campus, which was a really interesting point that we just had not, we had not had the opportunity to talk about that. And so, again, one of those things that these changes have brought up that are worthy of further conversation. But I thought that was a really interesting point that others might want to be considering too, as we think about security and letting guests into different residence halls.
Yeah,
Morrisville, we just allowed people to visit that were Morrisville students. So like residential Morrisville. So even our off-campus students were like, if you want to go visit them, go to their apartment off campus. We didn't allow them to come into the halls. You could only visit from one hall to another. We were concerned about people requesting roommate changes if we kept it the way we had it in the fall, because we got a ton of roommate requests over winter break. And I'm like, we've got to change the housing policy visitation, or otherwise I'm going to literally be swapping people all semester because I want to be in commons too, because all my friends are in commons too, and I need to move from this building. So they said that as long as they were residential students, because we test weekly, they can visit one another within the halls, but we cannot have off-campus residents visit or parents and stuff. So parents asked, what do I do? And I'm like, just come take them out to lunch, buy them groceries, drop them back off, go home. So that's kind of what I've been telling parents. I don't know what visitation is going to look like in the fall. I think we have a lot of stuff to wait on over the summer.
We are very similar, where we only allowed inter-residential students to visit each other because everybody is, of course, dating each other. And we have our facilities are split. We have an all-male facility, 2 all-male facilities, and 1 all-female facility. So in a normal year, you can have up to 4 guests checked in because our front desk are staffed 24/7. You can have up to 4 guests on your account. This year, in the fall, they weren't allowing any guest. Nobody, no nothing. Midway through the fall, they had to open that up to 1 person because of roommate switches and headache and people climbing in through windows. And then this semester, we opened it up to 2. And our conversation right now is, do we keep it at 2 for the fall, or do we go back to you can have up to 4 guests? That's where we're not sure where we fall just yet.
We very similar to Brandy, as she mentioned, we're looking at for September a guest pass. So it will be issued, every student will be eligible to get, as long as they were in good standing, to have 1 person. It would be a consistent person. That person would still have to do the campus check-in. So we have an online check-in system before anybody, including staff or faculty, come to campus. We have to check into campus every morning online. So those folks would still have to have access to a campus check-in form. Therefore, they don't necessarily need to be Mount students necessarily. And then we're probably looking at doing that for the guest part. And Drew, to answer your question earlier about how students are feeling about not having guests, they like that idea. We kind of floated that through a couple of forums with them the last couple of weeks. We also surveyed our students and did a satisfaction survey to see how they were feeling in our community. And the majority of them felt extremely safe and comfortable with not having people walking through their halls. So, you know, it is hard when you get the request about having a parent come or a partner or somebody to study with or whatever. But at the same time, the fact that the majority of our students, like 80% of our students, said that they like it the way it is, to not have it. They could go into residence, so they could go between buildings as long as they were our resident students, because they felt like they were their own community and they felt safe on our campus. So we're not in the city center. We're a little on the outskirts of the city. We're not in the downtown core, so they just felt very comfortable with it. Now, that being said, they do like the idea of being able to have at least 1 person come in. But we even shut down to tours. So our recruiting office wanted to bring folks through on their tours, their campus tours. And we said, well, that's not really very equitable if the students that live there can't have their parent drop them off or bring their laundry. I don't really want a random stranger walking through their halls, right? It's not really fair. So they like it. I think that it gives them a sense of security and safety for sure. And they've also taken great ownership in the space and knowing that it's just them. So, you know, they respect the space, they take care of it. All of our spaces, we have had almost 0 incidents this year. So the smaller community has helped, but also I think putting that responsibility back on the students to kind of take care of themselves and take care of each other has been really helpful.
And Daniel dropped into the chat about hosting camps and conferences. You know, when we're talking about guests and such in our residence halls, I suppose that's another good place to be asking what folks are doing. I know here at PC, we are starting to have some summer camps back. A lot of our typical camps are moving towards day camps and they're not staying in the residence halls. We're fortunate enough to host South Carolina's Girl State, which is run by the American Legion Auxiliary, for those familiar with the Girl State organization. Love having, 700 young women on campus and all of the fun that comes with that. Not to be had for this year, but their staff are still coming. So, we'll have, a dozen or 20 staff on campus doing their virtual production from here. So, even our partners are starting to find some hybrid ways to still be present on campus, even though they're not bringing their full programs here for this year. But I think all of us are looking for ways to bring people here, but wanting to make sure those groups are still doing things safely as well and aren't putting our other students at risk, that we might have here for summer research or summer school or those sorts of things. So I know that's what we're doing. What are other folks hearing about summer camps on your campus?
We're not having them. We're only allowing students that are of need or covering we have an ag school where I am. So we need someone to feed the cows and the horses. So we are allowing students that are helping with that and students of need to stay on campus. And we're not having any conferences this year. If we do, they're conferences that don't stay overnight. So they're like using our facilities, but they're not staying overnight in the halls.
Sorry, pretty much the same for us. No summer overnight camps. We do have a few camps that are just during the day, and we will allow those. We have a noted intern and some of the orientation leaders who work 3 months of the year preparing for orientation for incoming students. We do house them. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
We are only going to we just signed an MOU with a large baseball organization that comes out to Omaha for the College World Series each year. So we are hosting them. Their group was originally supposed to be close to 1,000 people when they first signed the MOU. Because of COVID and because of the world we're still in, it'll be closer to about 300 people, which is making our facilities teams very happy. But that is the only overnight, and they'll be here, I think, 2 weeks camp that we're allowing. We've had to say no to some other camps just because of timing and getting our buildings turned over. So potentially a few day camps on campus, but just this one larger baseball camp overnights. And then summer school students, we typically only have 20 to 40, depending on the summer.
We are going to have some summer camps that do stay overnight, including like our Upper Bound program and things like that. We also partner with some of the different businesses in town. And so we actually house their interns from other institutions typically in the region. So numbers still, don't look like normal, but we are starting to open that back up. And then we have our regular students that are here for the summer.
Well, I appreciate all the conversation we're having and good insights. Just it's good to hear what everybody else is doing in different places to help inform what we're doing. We've run through quite a few of the topics that folks had put in the registrations. What else are y'all burning for more knowledge on? And if while you're thinking, I can maybe ask one for our experts in residence group, since there's a couple of us on the call. We were appointed by the ACUHO-I executive board to be studying ways that we can do a good job of supporting our small colleges and universities members. Certainly we're doing that in lots of different ways. As I mentioned earlier, we're wanting to do more of these roundtables. So you'll be seeing these invites monthly. In addition to that, we had the Small School Symposium, and that was some really great information for those of you able to attend. We're working on coming out with a connections issue specific to small schools, just talking about the small school experience. But what other things might we be able to do for you, or are you interested in receiving from ACUHO-I? You are welcome to talk about that here, put that in the chat, or contact any of us afterwards. Because again, we are a group appointed here for the year to find out ways to help serve all of you better. So that is something else that is always on the table for discussion as well.
If I may jump in with a request, personally, I'd love to see some more talk and resources on assessment for housing offices at smaller universities that may not have access to some of the fancier software options, or just will have different methods of getting that assessment done. I would appreciate that very much.
So, Randy, are you referring to EBI?
Actually, well, we just went through our Higher Learning Commission accreditation and had assessment reports we had to turn in. We did great. We could do better. So that's just a personal area I would like to grow in.
I'm also looking at one of my projects when I start the position formally, quote unquote, in July, is the building automation with the key fob system and key card systems. So any words of wisdom, tips, recommendations, that's always appreciated. So any lessons learned, those types of things.
Make sure they're going to have the devices for a while. Like, get a longevity program is my only thing with locks, because they're a wonderful nightmare if they're not going to be working for a long time. It's just my personal opinion. Oh, and have battery backup for when your fire alarms go off or you lose power. There you go.
One of the questions that I'd like to bring up, because we have a great audience here, is the cost for the symposium. I know when ACUHO-I brought the cost to us the first time, we were a little shocked, and we're just trying to be sensitive to everyone, especially when it comes to COVID and how, as people mentioned, our budgets have been either removed or aligned in other areas. So any feedback on the cost? And I really enjoyed having that team type of approach where you can invite all your staff to attend for one price.
Well, I'm kind of biased, but I took total advantage of the team rate. I invited everybody under the sun. I invited conduct. I invited DEI. I invited our EOP program. One of our EOP guys was actually on the game night. I was trying to like kick butt, but he did okay. But like I took full advantage of the team rate because it was definitely more than 4 people. And that was what I would need to hit the 100. So I took advantage of that. Brandy, going back to your statement, because I totally realized I answered the key thing and not yours. If you want to do assessment, talk to me. I love assessment. I'm not going to lie, though. It's mostly Excel files because I don't have a software either. But I love assessment. So let me know how I can help you or whatever with it. I wasn't trying to ignore your statement because I actually got really excited when you wrote you said assessment. It's like my happy word. Don't ask. I know. But if you want, feel free to like reach out to me. I will be more than willing to help you or come together, but I just use Microsoft Teams and I keep everything there and I have folders and it's a lot of Excel files, but it works for not having the resources of like a big school.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I scribbled down your name and I will. Thank you.
You're not alone, Beth, with the Excel files. We're using forms and downloading stuff to spreadsheets and doing it all ourselves too.
And that is the way we were at my last institution. I don't know whether it is genius or folly, but at my current institution, we actually set aside a day in the spring semester that is called Assessment Day. And our institutional research does all sorts of assessment. They randomize campus, by class level and then by all of these other things that people who are much better at assessment than I know how to randomize and stratify people into. We have an entire day of it. Now, the trick to that is students know they don't have class that day. And so the night before is always a little busier for the residence life staff. So there are trade-offs to not having to do all of your own assessment work. But yes, I am familiar with all of those Excel files as well. Dan, to your point, the one thing when we did our new apartments, we looked at all of the different options, whether we wanted to go keys, whether we wanted to go fobs, whether we wanted to go card readers. And kind of when I had poked around with a few folks, most of the people who had fobs said, if I knew I was going to deal with fobs this much, I probably just would have went with keys, or I would have went with card readers, because while the card readers might be a little more expensive to begin with, it's so much easier just to make somebody a new card than it is to replace their fob. So that is anecdotal from just the few folks we talked with, but maybe something for you to consider as well.
We agree. And also card machines to recut a key for you, like yourself, like a card versus a fob machine. So like after hours, so much cheaper. And the swipes are cheaper for the students to buy. So if you have a social economical issue on your campus, the card swipes have been more economically feasible for our students than replacing a fob. Now, if a student decides to kick the thing off their door, I can't help you with the charge you're going to get, because that has happened. Not at my current institution, but at another college I worked at that was also a small school. A student decided at 4 o'clock in the morning he couldn't get into his room and kicked the lock off his door. We're not going to talk about how much that cost to replace, but yeah.
I had a quick question about hiring professional staff. So we are in the process of hiring an operations manager, and small schools, smaller salaries, which is a struggle. I did a comparison, and this type of position at most places would be making 40, 42, and we were initially offering 33. I drug it up to 36, which is pretty good for what we're offering, but it's not an amazing salary. How would folks recommend trying to get? It's a bachelor's required, and that's about the only requirement of the position. Getting folks interested in that. It's not live-in, which is, I think, part of the hard part for it, but it does have a lot of responsibilities with our desks, and then the management. We use eRes for our software.
So Griffin, I can attest to this because that's very similar to my position. So I recently am moving from Arlington, Virginia, which is a very expensive area, in DC to Kirksville, Missouri, which is not an expensive area. So I think you have to look at the cost of living, and I really feel like if you can show, even to personalize it to those candidates, if you know where they're coming from, you could say, well, the cost of living for you is 75% less than whatever, or whatever, that calculation. There are calculators online. You can even send them if you want, without getting too personalized. But definitely, I feel like those types of things really do make a difference, to make a position more marketable and comparable to other places. Because as you know, 4,000 or 40,000 is not the same in different locations of the country. I know 40,000 in DC will not get you as much as 40,000 in Iowa, for example.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. Like, definitely check out that link, because like when I went from a private school and like a public, like state school in a busy area in North Carolina, and then I moved to like the country in Rensselaer, Indiana, the cost was a little bit lower to take the job, but the cost of living was drastically lower. So that's why it made it very excited to look at, versus like when I was looking at a job in Alaska and I looked at the cost of living in Alaska versus where I was, and then I looked at the cost of salary. Sometimes showing them that. Also looking at your local ACUHO-I region and seeing if there's anywhere other colleges that are in a similar like setting, financially, location, all that kind of stuff, and seeing what that position looks like. Because if you have to take it back to your group and say, guys, we need $2,000 more just to look realistically based on all this stuff to this other college, sometimes you can get that raise because you've done that work. So that's another way to look at it. But yeah, if your cost of living is not as high as like DC area, then that could be very marketable, because that's the thing some of my RDs get hung up on when they're applying for jobs, is they're like, well, if I went and worked in New York City, I would make this much for the job. I go, yeah, the cost of living is like 5 billion times more than the cost of living in central New York. So of course they're going to pay you more because you have to pay more to survive. So sometimes having that conversation is very helpful, but also having it with your committee or your search group of, hey, this really is undercut even for our area. Could we add like $2,000 to $3,000 to the salary so it's more marketable?
I also would add in relocation. If their relocation is if your budget allows for that to make your position more marketable.
Any of the extra perks you can give them, a free parking pass, so when they come on campus, they can go to free parking or assigned parking location. Because it is off-campus job. Also show them some local areas that are cheaper to rent, that are still nice. Like when you're marketing it to them when they come to campus. All that kind of stuff is always like, oh wow, they took the time to like look into this for me.
Yeah, that's what Truman did actually for me as well. It's personalized, and also any fun things to do that are their hobbies or interests is also nice.
Okay. Thanks, y'all.
That's also where, I've heard a couple people say that they are new to ACUHO-I, participating in the campus housing index, so that you then have access to those numbers. That has been very beneficial to us because somebody else does the work for you, and then you can take all of that research to your leadership team and say, hey, I've got this position. I need this position to be a bit more competitive if we're going to get the type of people we want to have here. But yeah, I agree with all of the other things about how do you sweeten the deal. Moving expenses, yes, that could be a couple of $1,000s, but if you can't make that an annual part of their salary, even just a one-time benefit of that to get them to be able to move there can make a huge difference to somebody saying yes or no and being able to get the candidate who you want. And I know we're coming right up on the edge of our time, and I want to be respectful because I know at the end of the spring semester, people have lots of things going on. Those of you who are in new positions and new members to ACUHO-I, congratulations and thank you for being here. For those of you who are more familiar faces, we're really glad to see you as well. Again, our hope is to be able to continue these conversations monthly. The idea is roughly the third Thursday of each month. We will put out, a registration link ahead of time. There is no cost to it for members. Put into the registration the things that you want to talk about. And let's be able to connect with each other and get some good thoughts and know what other people are doing. So again, I really appreciate all of you being on the call today. I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful rest of the weekend, and we look forward to seeing you again next month.